this is Warhammer Sean. I'm here with another video here. Today we're going to talk about a few things that have been on my mind pretty heavy the last couple days, just because of a few pretty significant or influential groups or people have been making quite a stir, and I'm sure I'll be just a tiny splash in the huge waves that are already out there, but I figure that I think some things need to be said, and maybe some things in a potentially different light compared to some of the stuff that's going out there and rants and stuff like that. So today we're going to talk about comp and facts and tournaments and rules changes. That's the main topic today. First off, let's start with what is a FAQ, or what it stands for is frequently asked questions. A lot of places or really big events will have an FAQ that goes along with their group or tournaments. Our group, for instance, that I put together and we do, our local group, has their own FAQ, and we have a FAQ committee that kind of helps basically decide on what's in the FAQ. Now, it depends on who you are and who you ask what a FAQ should be made of. Now, on Games Workshop site, their FAQ basically kind of will potentially add definition to rules, or sometimes they'll potentially change them as additions change, or put clarifications in there to, like, can you do this? Like, for instance, one FAQ that they did, I'm just going to pick on, like, Dark Eldar. The Shadow Field originally in the rulebook said that if you took an unsaved wound, you lost your Shadow Field at the end of the phase that was going on, either in shooting or assault phase. And so for a while, myself included, we were saying, hey, if you pass your Feel No Pain, then you didn't really take an unsaved wound, so your Shadow Field still stays. Even though technically you failed the Shadow Field save, you passed your Feel No Pain, so you didn't take an unsaved wound. Now the GW did FAQ it, or FAQ it, and said, hey, no, if you pass a Feel No Pain, you still failed your Shadow Field, you're still going to lose your Shadow Field at the end of the phase. So it's just kind of a clarification. And I think, personally, I think that an FAQ, the purpose of them in your group is to help make rules clear, because unfortunately, and it's a very big game, and I'm not blaming anyone, but like Games Workshop and Forge World in particular too, their FAQ still says 6th edition and we're in 7th now, so they haven't really updated their stuff in a while, and so sometimes you need things that are unclear so that you can make a smooth tournament or a smooth gaming group. You're going to have an FAQ so that, okay, hey, so if we have questions in the game or the tournament, right in the FAQ, that's going to tell us how it's going to be played, so there's no debate. We don't have to have the TO decide on the spot how they're going to rule it. Although, most of the time, whoever's TOing, if there is a question that's not answered, they have the final say for that tournament. But usually what will happen, at least in our group, is if there's a question, it's like, okay, we got to address this in the next FAQ, or update the FAQ to make sure it's clear the next time. And so I think the purposes of an FAQ, at least a local group one, not Games Workshop, is to clarify the rules so that it's at least you've clarified them so that people have an understanding. This is how it works in this circumstance. Now, things may change. GW may FAQ something, and it may not agree with what you FAQed it, so you have to change it. But I think that's what the FAQ or FAQs are for. I do not think that FAQs are for changing the rules. And I'm going to repeat that again. I do not think FAQs are there to change the rules. Now, that kind of gets into comp, and some people kind of see the two as the same. There's a big kind of independent tournament circuit and group that is really pushing comp, and they definitely have comp in their rules and their FAQ and how they want their tournaments run. Now, you have the ability, if you want to run your tournament your way, even though you're part of that tournament circuit. The problem with that is that if people are coming to play in your tournament and they're used to the tournament circuit from other areas, it's probably going to cause some problems if yours doesn't agree with the main groups. But the problem is with comp is that what comp is you're changing something in the rules, the core of the rules, to change so that you think that it's going to make the game flow better or work better or be better. And that's usually why comp is done. Now, some people agree with it, some people don't. Some people argue with it, some people won't. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with if you you got a bunch of buddies and you're playing in your basements or meeting someplace and you have a house rule. There's nothing wrong with house rules, and you can do what you want. But when it comes to a national level, it's kind of difficult, or if it becomes a bigger thing, when you start having it be certain tournaments and then other tournaments have different sets of rules, it makes it a little bit more challenging for people that are going tournament to tournament. If they're playing a lot of tournaments, it can make it kind of difficult. I'll be right back. Hey everybody, I'm back. I'm going to continue my talk. I think we left off with talking about comp. If you set out to kind of change, and most of the time with comp you're changing the game so that you think that it's potentially making the game better. Like I said, if you're playing mainly basement games or with some friends, you can have house rules, which is kind of comp. And it doesn't even matter because you're not really playing against anybody else. Everybody knows the rules. Everybody knows what they're going to be. When you start doing a lot more tournaments nationally, or different groups or different cities even, in where I'm at, there's different cities that have different game stores that run different tournaments. And so, but we try to be similar so that if someone goes from one area to another, they hopefully can play the game and do fine. Although, like I said, the groups that I normally go to and our own group don't use comp at all. We just have FAQs, and most of our FAQs are very similar. Some places don't have them. Other places use ones like Adepticons or Frontline Gaming's or BAO type ones. The problem with having comp, I saw a sign recently that said "Don't panic, just change the rules," and I agree with the first part. I don't think people should panic. I don't agree with the second part. I don't think you should change the rules to make it change the game. Now here's why. And people are just gonna argue, well, Eldar are ruining it, because this is what's really kind of bringing it about. And the last time, a big fit kind of was had is when 6th edition, when they released Escalation, and people were like, oh my god, this is terrible. Lords of War, you can take Lords of War in your normal combined arms detachment now, that's just going to break the game. And what a lot of places did was like, okay, well, you can't bring Lord of War, so they just kind of nixed it. And I think kind of GW is like, oh, you're going to do that. Well, okay, here's Imperial Knights. And they're not technically Lords of War, and they have their own codex, so you kind of have to let them in. It was kind of like their ease into it. As far as reasons as to why I think they did that, there's many. I think one of them is with 3D printing coming more readily available and getting better over time, it's going to be harder to do the big models, and I think they want to sell the big models to kind of stay in the groove, continue to have things selling. That's just a hypothesis. But I think they're kind of like, showing us, hey, these guys are here to stay, and I think we kind of realize that. And now with the new Imperial Knights as it came out, they're like, okay, they're Lords of War now again. So basically they follow the same rules. So if you're going to like go, okay, no Lords of War, oh crap, I really gotta, people are already used to playing Imperial Knights, so I gotta let them in. And if you're just gonna go only one Lord of War, that's gonna really screw some of the people that want to play Imperial Knights, especially as their primary, because they can't take more than one of them. So the other thing is, when you start changing the rules, somebody else inevitably becomes king. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's say, for instance, you say, okay, I'm not going to allow D weapons at all. Well, by doing that, you've allowed some of these, quote unquote Death Stars to do really well and be very hard to take down. Death Stars like like the Screamer Stars, so Screamers with Heralds with the Book of Names, able to get up 2-up rerollable saves. Very hard to kill, almost impossible. You can have Eldar Seer Council with a 2-up reroll, although that's not an invulnerable save, that's just a 2-up due to psychic powers. So it's a 4-up if they have Fortune, reroll. Still pretty good. And then you could have things like a Drago, Grey Knights with a Graf Centurion squad with Tigerius. So he's basically getting, like potentially ignore cover, prescience, and Drago's tank and wounds because he's Eternal Warrior, and he's potentially got a 2-up invulnerable save if you get a power off, a psychic power off that increases invuln by 1. So, that can be hard to kill, and I've had games against them where my my way to deal with them was just ignore them or potentially like feed them a unit each turn and go, well, okay, what let me deal with the troops or other things because I can't really kill this squad very easily. And so by removing D, you've kind of made those guys king again, and it almost seems like to me that you're taking a step back. It's like, it's not like, okay, we're not going to play 7th edition, we're going to play 6th edition or 5th edition. And I know a lot of people think 5th edition was the glory days of 40k. I don't agree. I'm not going to go into that. But, if you're going to continue to play current editions, you kind of need to change with the rules. And that's another point, I think, as to not changing the rules, is that if you don't, you're forced to learn, how do I deal with this D, or how do I deal with this new troop or this new force? How do I do it and kill it and win the game? And I think, another time that after escalation that scared everybody was with Imperial Knights. And at first everybody was like, oh my god, these are just the best thing in the world, and they're going to just ruin the game, they're going to overpower everything. And with 7th edition and Maelstrom, if you have tournaments that play them or TOs that use them, Maelstrom cards really kind of help, or MSU means minimum squad units, or minimum like sized units that people use. So you're using small man squads versus like larger squadrons. Sorry, I hit the wrong button here. When you have minimum size units, one, it helps with basically your Maelstrom cards, whereas Imperial Knights, if you have 3 of them, aren't going to be able to score the cards as efficiently. Also, MSU units or armies are going to do better against D weapons, because even if you have a D weapon, you can only destroy 5 guys versus, instead of a 10-man squad that's really expensive, you got 2 5-man squads. So that unit can still only shoot at 1 unit, except for when we're talking about gargantuans and super heavies and stuff like that. But they're only destroying 1 unit. And even like the Wraith Knight, which became a gargantuan, if it's shooting both of its D cannons at 2 different units, it's still only killing maybe one guy, or if it does multiple, maybe a few guys, but you're not usually destroying a squad. I think by having to deal with it, you learn how to adapt and deal, And I know people's complaints, I know the codexes have been coming out a lot, people complaining, oh, I don't want to be forced to spend money to buy new things or adapt. Well, that's kind of how this hobby works, and you have to be willing to spend money on it if you want to keep up and stay competitive, at least competitive. If you don't want to be competitive, you don't have to, but that's just kind of the way this hobby works, is you're always going to be putting some money into it each year, especially if you're only playing one army. You got to stay up on it. I think, when you kind of nerf or nerf things down, especially, when you ban things or nerf things down, when you go to another competition, like let's say, I'm just going to pick one, but for instance, like Adepticon, where range D was allowed at the last Adepticon, because certain things like the links and stuff like that could take D weapons were allowed. And so you had to be, and I played against 2 of them in my team tournament. I mean, because they were good and you faced them a lot. But we dealt with them, we destroyed them both, and both the people that we played that had the links, because they put a lot of points into it, neither one of them won against us. So even though they were fighting us with deep weapons, which we didn't have, we still had the capability of dealing with them. And I think if you're used to playing in an area that doesn't allow those things, and all of a sudden you go to a big tournament like Adepticon that allows it, all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, I don't know how to deal with this. Like, how do I deal with this? I haven't, we just nerfed it or banned it, and now it's allowing it here, and now I got to deal with it. So that's another reason why I don't think, comp is a good idea. I think, the world isn't ending. And yes, you will have armies. I do think, I'm not denying that the Eldar Codex isn't strong and it isn't good. It is. I do think down the pipeline as things come out, I think that more codices like Space Marines and Tau are going to have big good things in them too, and I think they're going to get good. I do agree. Up until before Necrons, I thought 7th edition had kind of tamed things down to some degree, but Necrons kind of was really resilient, really hard to kill. Not necessarily a killy army, but very hard to kill. So they were very good at, sticking around and not getting destroyed. And then, Codex Eldar came out, and they're, good. Yes, the Wave Serpent got, less good, got a little nerfed, but everything else got, I think, for the most part, a little better. So, I think, comp is, in my opinion, not necessarily the best thing for the game. The other thing is, when you're playing 40K, and you look at 40K, and all around the world, it's a game where you could probably go and people are playing everywhere. I'm not saying poor, third world countries necessarily, but pretty much everywhere in the world you can probably find places that play 40K. If you develop your own house rules or bans and stuff like that, and you go somewhere else, they're probably not going to have those things, and so it's going to be hard. You're going to have to adapt to it. And I think you have to kind of ask yourself, if you end up changing the rules, are you really playing 40K anymore, or are you playing whoever decided to make the comp? You're playing that version of 40K, which isn't really 40K, I would argue. And some people say, well, hell, everybody, all tournaments change things. And that's not necessarily true. Yes, all tournaments may say, okay, here's certain limits. Like, I'm going to play a Highlander style, so you can only take one of everything. Or I'm going to allow 3 formations or 4 formations. It's true they do that, but they're not necessarily changing the rules. Well, they're changing your formations or how you build your army, which to some degree is setting a standard, but it's not changing the core rules as far as how you play the game, which is what comp a lot of times does do. I think that, I personally am trying to get people in our group kind of used to 7th edition, and I'm not saying we play Unbound, we don't, but I mean, the last tournament I had, we did. You could take as many formations as you want. You were just limited to 1 Lord of War, or up to 3 knights. This is before the new Knight Codex came out. But other than that, you can have as many formations and attachments as you wanted to. And this month we're doing a tournament, and it's as many formations and attachments as you want to. There's no limit to Lords of War. Last tournament we ran, we didn't really have a lot of wacky shenanigans. Yes, we had 2 Lords of War, 2 people play Lords of War, and neither one of them, one finished like midway and one finished like second from the, or actually, sorry, very last place. That just kind of goes to show that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to automatically win if you bring a Lord of War. And we had some good, range of armies. I played as a ringer. I played Demonkin and actually did pretty well with them. I lost my first game against Grey Knights and Space Marines, but I got max points against a Lord of War and Space Marine build and Dark Eldar build. So, I mean, you can, I think it isn't necessarily, just because you allow certain things doesn't mean that everybody's going to break the rules on it. I don't know. It's my opinion. Once again, I'm not telling you what you have to do. I'm just trying to like put out there the other side of it, because you're hearing a lot of negative talk right now from people that you really have come to respect in the hobby, which is good. They've done a lot of good things for the hobby. Um, but at the same time, I think right now we're muddying the hobby and kind of downplaying the hobby right now. And when you take the easy road and say, hey, I'm going to modify the rules and we're going to do it that way, I don't think that's necessarily playing 40K, and I don't think it's also not like adjusting. I mean, yes, we may not like the rules, but for Games Workshop writes them. They're the ones that put out the rules, so we can't really argue and say, okay, well, we've got Games Workshop to blame, but you can't say, okay, so and so wrote these rules, so I don't like to play them, so we're going to play our own set of rules. Yes, I'm not saying Games Workshop is perfect, and I'm not saying their game system is perfect. I think they do a decent job. I think, it's a lot to cover, a lot of fluff, a lot of rules to cover, and it's hard to write those systems. I mean, having written tournaments, it's a lot of times it's hard because sometimes people will interpret things differently, and so it's not always the easiest to write. Could they be faster on their FAQs? Yes, they could. I'm not saying they're perfect, but I don't think that writing or changing the rules is the right answer to do, in my opinion. And I'm hoping, yes, I'm probably going to make small ripples in the whole ocean that's out there, and I'm certainly not a big name in the gaming community at this point, but I've been playing since Rogue Trader. I've been playing a very long time, and so I can tell you that I've been in the game for a long time, and I've seen a lot of ups and downs in the game. I really didn't like 3rd edition at all. I kind of stopped playing for a little while and came back into it, but I didn't give up on it, and the game went on, and it changed and got better. There were things in 4th edition that changed to 5th edition. There were things from 5th that certainly changed to 6th. And the game keeps going. You can change the rules, but I don't think, things are going to go away. You can try to change things to kind of downplay D weapons, but I think more of them are going to come out, and Lords of War are definitely here to stay. So that's my, I guess, soapbox on a comp. For tournaments, I think you have to look at, you can run things however you want to. But I think sometimes people try to limit things to 2 combined arms attachments or stuff like that, and I think you're kind of hanging on to 5th and 6th edition, and really 7th edition is about having multiple forces kind of combined to form this one army that is your force. And when you think about it, there's, in battles, there's certainly going to be allies, especially the Imperium, and Eldar, who are going to work with, Harlequins and Dark Eldar, or even Corsairs. And Imperium certainly is usually going to have a component that's Imperial or Astra Militarum and Space Marines, or Knights, or everything, all of that, or even Titans. Excuse me. I mean, every time there's a big battle, all of those components are involved. It's not just, Blood Angels fighting, So I kind of embrace 7th edition. For a long time, I consider myself, I would say I was a purist when 6th edition came out, and I would only play the one army. I would never use allies. And then it's like, oh, this is, kind of, it's a disadvantage for me, tournament-wise. Which I'm not saying you have to be competitive or play tournaments or play competitively, but if you're going to play, tournaments, it's, you need to kind of take advantage of the game because other people are going to too. And I actually found that it was kind of fun, and it's kind of fun to have allies. But I play a lot of armies, so I play everything except Blood Angels and Scutari right now. So lots of different armies. So I like it, it's fun. In closing, I know there's been some surveys out there. I would beg you to look at the results of the surveys on some of these websites, because when you look at it, I mean, how are you deciding how the rules are going to be? I mean, some of these, are you using statistics? Are you using statistical significance? Are you using parliamentary procedure? Are you using 2/3 vote decides if it's yes? If it doesn't get 2/3 vote, it doesn't change. But that's not really what's happening. What's happening out there, especially with some of these polls, is the majority wins, but the majority might only win let's see. I'm gonna pull up one of these here. So like formations, no, if you take no restrictions or no duplicate CAD styles or no duplicate formations, they're very close. And when you look at like how many detachments do you want to see, 1, 2, 3, or unlimited, and the difference between 2 and 3 is very small, but 2 1, and so that's what they're going with. And I don't think, yes, technically you can say the majority said it, but not by very much. And so when you add up, when we say majority, it's like, okay, 2 wins, but if you add up all the other ones, they're far more than what the 2 votes had. And so I don't think you can just look at it like that and go, okay, this is how we're going with it. Same thing with D weapons, and the same thing with like bikes and special rules with those. So I just beg, yes, people, I know some people that have played lots of games, and that's, that's what they do, is they have a gaming, that's their business, and so they can play lots of games to test it. And I'm not saying that they haven't play tested, I'm not saying that they haven't work to see how it's going. I'm saying we still need more time before we decide to do anything rash like changing the rules. I think it takes months, and let's see what the next codex holds too. I mean, it's going to take a little while to see, and everybody will have their day in the sun, but things are going to come along. They're going to be the next good thing. Anyway, that's my piece. Like it, hate it, but I just hope that you listen to it and actually stop and think, okay, I don't necessarily agree with him, but I'm thinking about what he said, and maybe I need to, think about those things, or, not. But I'm just kind of trying to represent both sides, because I find that some of the people that have been around for a long time, I think it's always good to kind of take the high road and resist saying things like this is broken, or this is cheese, or this is too much, because then everybody kind of glums onto it and takes it as fact. Whereas it's easy for us to do that when we lose to an army and go, oh, that we lost because it was cheesy, or we lost because of the dice. No, you might have lost. I personally like to play games like before the Tyranids got some of their new stuff and new books, new supplements. I was like, I like playing Tyranids, and if I win with them, I feel really good, because they're not an easy army to win with. Or Dark Elder, I love playing my Dark Elder, and if I win with that, I'm like, they're not a forgiving army if you screw up. And so I think you can be a good general and still win with any army. I'm not saying that you got an easy road and some armies are easier than others, but I don't think you can just go, well, I play tested this for a couple weeks and I've played like 20 games and now I know that I got to nerf this or change these things. I think it takes months, and I think it takes more than just one person play testing and saying, hey, if you knock me off my chair, and I'm going to give you some money, and we'll see who can beat who. I think you need to have multiple people play test it before you do that. And not to say I'm not ripping on these people, because I respect them. I think they have contributed a lot to the game. I'm just saying I think we need to give it more time. I think we need to, what I'm going to say is keep calm, take a deep breath, and don't do anything rash right now. Don't change the rules. Don't, just hold on, and let's see. Let's play these armies and see what are ways that we can beat them. And that's the way I look at it, is it's a challenge. Like, what can I do to beat this tough army now? That's my opinion. Anyway, hopefully you've liked this video. Please check out my channel, the rest of the channel, if you haven't. Please feel free to subscribe. If you have any questions or want to hear me talk about anything, please enter in the comments below, and I will do so. Until next time, keep on wargaming.
Goodbye. 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 Bye-bye. Goodbye. See ya. Bye for now. Bye for now. Goodbye. I like bottoms.